8/2025, 4:30, for the local comprehensive planning committee.
Matt, are we online? Or?
Oh, great. And we're online and good. And the first order of business, I believe we have a quorum. We've got 6 here. Great. First order of business is review and approve the meeting minutes for April 1st, 2025.
Move approval.
Have a second.
Second.
You didn't get anything.
Oh, we did, okay.
But see, you have to do
Forward
motion
approval.
and second,
Right.
and then discuss.
Oh.
And that was the discussion.
That was the
That was
discussion.
my discussion. In my spare time, guys.
Yes, we're moving quick.
Move we table the motion until.
It'll be, it's consent agenda next month.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Aye. Okay, great.
Great start.
Yeah, it's good. This is really good. Joyce is
We're
going to
gonna
be
get better.
very
All we
eager.
can go is upward from here.
Okay, cool. So, looking at the new business that we have, I believe we're going to look at the local comprehensive plan actions that Ty and Bond put together from the PowerPoint, which I'm so gracious of you to do it. So if we want to start there and open up discussion on it, I think that would be fantastic.
Want me to just sit here and
Yeah,
talk
you can
about
sit,
it?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. We're all friends. It's good.
All right, don't have to be too formal. Okay, either way. I hope you can be able to see it.
Yeah, I've got right here too.
Oh, good, oh,
To
perfect,
get-
okay.
I had hoped to finish this project before I got to the end of my book. We're not gonna make it.
Sure, yep. Okay, you can go ahead, thank you. So we were asked to come up with a method, if you will, process for evaluating I think David has counted up, we're up to 87 actions in the LCP.
That's before additions from Kristen.
Okay, so
In
let's
it.
just say roughly.
80 plus.
Yeah, 80 plus actions or recommendations coming out of the plan. And so I have provided you with some spreadsheets that show, the different issue areas, so they're all broken out by issue area.
Yep.
But at our last meeting, and in subsequent conversations with Joyce and Christine and so forth, we were advised to come up with an approach for how do you then rank those, or determine which are the highest priority, medium priority, lowest priority. What's the process for that? And there's so many different ways you can do this. I'll just start by saying that. And there's the very simple method of high, medium, low priority, short, medium, long term, and you do your best at figuring that out, and that's the extent of it.
Yep.
We were asked to go a little further with that, and I know that in the meantime, Brian and Mary and others have been working on this, what they call four-square approach, which is another method. So just by way of background, to make this transparent, when you get to town meeting and you get before the voters, they're gonna say, well, how did you come up with, why did you choose this as a high priority? There are some general rules of thumb that you should follow. First is to engage the implementers. Who's gonna be implementing this plan? So this is the first step today. We're talking about this committee making your recommendations on priorities in the action plan. But ultimately should be involving a lot of other folks as well, right? And we know that you'll be doing that. Then the second is to select criteria that are relevant to multiple actions. So the criteria should be general enough, and again, there's so many different ways of slicing and dicing this, but you want to make them relevant to what it is you're going to be doing, or the town is going to be doing. So don't want to have too many, because then you can really get into the weeds and the process could take you forever. So it's suggested that you limit the number of criteria to maybe 3 or 4. That's why sometimes these things end up in 4 squares or 9 squares. And the criteria should avoid overlap, so they should be clearly identifiable by themselves to cover this wide range of actions. And you can group similar concepts. And again, limit the number of criteria selected. So,
Got it.
next slide. So, we took a shot at that, and again, there are various ways to do this. But we were thinking about, well, your job is, how does the action meet the goal? So that these actions should relate back to the goal.
Yeah.
And so one of the criteria could be the significance. How important is that action in achieving that goal? It may be, only minimally important, or it may be really, just a key item to implement or to meet the goal. How easy is it to implement? Does the town have the authority to do it on its own? Or is it gonna require multiple stakeholders, long process, very complicated? Then third, how much will it cost? And understanding that you don't have dollar signs attached to all these actions. A lot of them really don't have dollar signs right now, but really just kind of a sort of a gut instinct as to, is this like a major undertaking cost-wise, or is this something we can do with resources we have in the town? So it's a low-cost item to implement. And then how long will it take? So that's a factor too. If it's gonna take many years, involve multiple stakeholders, it's really complex, well, that tells you something, like maybe it, isn't the high priority or the highest. But, so it's just a way to set up your evaluation. Okay, next slide.
Quick question.
Yes, sure.
Around, like, so you've got the significance and achieving goal, ease of implementation, cost to implement, time to implement, and it equates to a score. Is there a particular weighted scoring mechanism that you guys have used? Because, significance in achieving goal, let's say it's a 1 through 5, ease 1 through 5, whatever that is.
That's up to you.
Okay, so
You
it's
can either
subjective
weight it
to.
or not weight it. I tried to keep this as simple as
Cool.
possible, because there's another step where you could do a weighting.
Yep.
Again, the more factors you add, the more complicated it gets.
Sure.
So then the next step would be to rank, those 4 criteria. If you already use 4, you could use 3. Those may not be the right criteria for you, so we should discuss it. And then rank them from 0 to 4. And I said 0 lowest, 4 is highest. I know David pointed out one flaw in that, but I think that can be dealt with.
Okay.
So then you go through and you say, okay, for each of these criteria, do the exercise of, it's gonna take a long time, okay, we give it a 0, et cetera. You just go through and do the math.
Yep.
As a group.
Zero.
You come up with a total score. And then, I'm sorry I didn't have a better graphic for this, but this little shot below shows, in this case, a set of actions related to a climate action plan. And those bars and the colors relate to their rankings for each of those different categories that they did for this particular exercise. So you can see, like, the one at the top, ranked highly, like, on a number. So it's a way you could visualize that, or the public could visualize it if you wanted to do that. You don't necessarily have to take that step, but
Okay.
that would make it more visually appealing. So that's kind of it. Happy to answer questions. I think are there more slides? No. Yeah. And then again, I know that Brian and others have been working on a different approach to this, so, I'm sorry, there is another one. So we did take an example here. So this is one of the actions, from your draft plan, which is to develop a resource management plan for the Six Ponds DCPC and review existing regulations to ensure that the district is effective in achieving its goals. So just as an example, I just chose these numbers. That doesn't mean that I chose the right numbers, but how significant is it? Yeah, it'd be pretty significant for that, for, in achieving the goal. If you go back and look at the goal that's in the spreadsheet. How easy it is to do, it's gonna take some time, it's gonna be not an easy thing to do, it's gonna cost you some money, et cetera. Came up with a total score of 10 for that particular action.
Okay.
So then what you would do is just go down the list, and you would generate total scores for each of the actions. It's tedious. I mean, this is going to be tedious, no matter how you do it.
Yeah.
I'm afraid. But it gives you a method of saying, we weighed various criteria to come up with this priority.
Yep.
And that might be it, yeah.
Cool.
So, questions, comments, confusion?
No, I would just say thank you for putting this together. It makes sense. I think overall, it's just gonna require whoever's baselining this stuff, we would probably wanna keep it as standard as possible, right? I don't know if you have thoughts on it, David?
Not, I will, but not yet.
Okay,
Yeah, so someone would need to keep track of it, obviously, and the spreadsheets are a way to do that. So I set up the spreadsheets with those criteria, the categories.
yeah,
And someone, like, you would, workshop that and have opinions, and then you could introduce voting into it if you wanted to. I mean, that could take, quite a bit of time.
yeah.
But, can you reach consensus on the various rankings by going through? I think some actions will be easier than others to do that with as a group. But the idea is that you come up with one score. I suppose people could go off and do their own scoring for a while, but then you're gonna have to tabulate it, and
It's
so.
gonna be
The
a
idea is that you do it in like a workshop type of setting
Sure.
and come to agreement.
So what's the first step? Just
Well,
deciding on a set of criteria to use?
yes, that would be a
Okay.
first step, yes. Review those and see if those are the right ones for you, come up with different ones, if those don't work for you, if you want to use this approach. Brian and other, I don't want to call it Brian's approach, but the other group that has been working on this has a sort of a different sort of impact. How big of an impact is it going to be versus how feasible is it? They're not really different, they just have little
layout.
different criteria.
Yeah.
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 And I don't know if he's attending or if someone wants to
Mary does?
Yes.
discuss, the other method.
Yeah.
Is it possible?
Yes.
Yes,
Sure.
if it's for whoever, I just wanted to hand this around. I know you have that, but just, if you don't have the definition for it, I do have, we want to throw it, but I think if you have these handouts, you can follow along.
You've got one, right?
As Sharon's mentioned, there are so many, yes, that's just a handout of Brian's PowerPoint. And you have it right in front of you. That, is this easy for you? Is this easier for you to look
I
at?
have it in my, I can
And
see
if
it.
we can, I can put it up here, just explain a PowerPoint if you want. Yeah, it's on that. But
Oh, you can't get in on GoTo?
Downstairs, Garrett, you want me
He
to
said he
go?
can't get in and go to.
Oh, go-tos are downstairs.
Can't get in the
Oh, no,
building?
you can't get online.
Can't get online, that's what I,
Yeah, Brian's waiting in the
He
room.
can't
Are you
get-
even in the room? Are
not
you in the
physically,
waiting
he
room?
can't get into the go-to
I
meeting.
can relate to you the actual code, 1 second.
Yeah.
that's good timing then, for Brian to be coming on here.
And you went to the one on the agenda, correct?
That he forgot, or didn't pay attention.
I'll give a moment.
Yeah.
Was it- I wondered.
Oh, no, we were actually just about to talk to you. But Mary's gonna
Mary's
kind
here,
of kick
let
it
Mary
off, and
do
they're
it.
gonna try and figure out where you are, okay?
Yeah,
I didn't follow that code on the actual,
Yeah, he said he's getting he's in the waiting room.
a lot of
Okay,
people
well,
want
that's
to get
on
in.
that.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah,
Hold on one second, Brian.
As Sharon mentioned,
Good,
there
good thinking.
are a couple of ways to get in to do this. And if you look at the handout that was distributed, you'll see there's overlap in the methodology. So I think there's opportunity to blend the methods so that what we have as far as this method is a two-step method, impact versus feasibility. But then it's clearly defined, each one of those actions, as to what is impact and the rating score right next to it. So that's the, excuse me, the second slide. Impact, if you find that it actually does go by that definition, let's say that the score of low impact, and that's the specific definition, because a lot of times, I don't have the scope of knowledge to understand costs of things or really the impact. Having its definition for this helps me to guide how I should be able to rate this. That's what I'm thinking there. And then the feasibility. The After which, if you go to the third slide on the back of the first page, you see a grid that where the two intersect, the feasibility and the impact, that's gonna give your potentially complex but potentially game-changing. And where that ends up is the next slide on the four-grid method. As you see, there you've got do later, do now, do last, do next, and it defines that. All of these are actual definitions for being able to put that action in a specific time frame. Where I think it would be good to kind of fuse both of these methods is that this one here could lay the foundation, be that baseline, if you will, and then with Sharon's criteria and her, that we can go into each grid and maybe narrow it down a little bit for the ranking, anything like that. But I think there's potential here because we're saying the same thing. We are. I just like as far as the idea of having specific definitions that I can back the ranking for. But this actually does deal with what Sharon had mentioned, engage implementers, those impacted by the action, as far as establishing your criteria. Basically, this is already established in those definitions, if you will. So it kind of eliminates that first step. And this methodology really can fold into the highest impact as far as implementation of the actions. That's what his focus was. Brian's focus was making sure that it can transition over and get into a easy tracking system, and that's the last slide that you see here, in being able to then have this live document that can be adjusted based on this criteria.
Okay.
Can I ask a question, Christine or Sharon? So we don't take it one step further and decide, there's Margot,
She sees us.
who or what department this is gonna fall into, correct?
Yeah, that usually, the spreadsheets that I gave you have a, like leader, and that may have gotten actually wiped out in the, when I just replaced with the columns, but I had identified who would be the lead
Okay.
agency, lead department. That typically goes into an
That's what I
action
thought,
plan too.
otherwise it's just kind of in la-la land.
Yeah, yes,
Now-
I would recommend that, yeah.
I'd recommend, I'd echo Sharon's comments to make sure that we do have assigned leaders or those parties responsible for implementation.
And as you see in the outline, or I also have copies here, I just listed the three columns as far as impact, feasibility, and timeline. Do it now, later, et cetera. But this, as far as having individual worksheets, it might be able, if we have the directions and have this baseline right here, we could have the opportunity to do it independently and then workshop the finer details with Sharon, if that would be a possibility.
Yeah, I think that was the original intent behind the Miro board, and that still could be used in a workshop format where you've got these four squares, right?
Right.
And somebody's moving them around, and people are saying, well, no, I don't think it should be here, I think it should be here. So you're having a, discussion about it, and they're movable until you finally settle on it,
Just based on the comfort level of the committee members, what the discussion was, is that those four quadrants can be easily displayed on a whiteboard.
Oh, sure.
And
Oh, yeah.
then we could do the same
You can
thing
do it with Post-it
in a
notes.
workshop
Yeah.
collaboratively.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
color-coded Post-its. And that could help too, as far as doing that baseline.
Those are definitely all good options.
Christine, you look very motivated to talk, so.
Christine, you go first. My only concern, I think either method or a combination of both would be helpful. I do think, given time, I am concerned about wanting to get the consensus from the committee and having input in the simplest form possible in terms of short, medium, and long-term goals, and then also prioritization of each action item. And so just, I do want to reemphasize in terms of time, what the expectations are, and going forward, what's maybe the simplest way to get consensus from, each of the individual members, consolidate that information, and then maybe have it report back out to the committee, or have the committee do it as an activity in a group setting, so.
Let me understand what direction you want. What does that mean we do right now?
So it depends on what the consensus of the committee is relative to both Sharon's version and.
So we should really choose to follow one of those two methods?
Well, I think we should discuss that, yes.
Okay.
Or which
I just
is
wanted to remind the committee of the timing
All
in
right,
terms
so
of what
you're
the
not expressing
expectation
a
of timing.
Right.
No,
preference
not
yet?
at this time.
All right, I'll start. First of all, Sharon's got a lot of experience with this, and I very much value that. And I think she's also been very gracious in acknowledging the work that Mary and Brian have done. I did my little exercise this morning to see which one I would have an easier time with. And I had an easier time with Mary and Brian's, at least at this beginning stage. Now, it may find that once we start comparing everything together, it might change a little. But I think we could go through and do a lot of evaluating with that simple 2x2. And that's where I suggest we start.
Yes, I agree, because then it gives everyone in this workshop format just the ability to really familiarize themselves with the actions in a baseline way. And then again, having Sharon's expertise come in to really refine it. It's not all going to be done today, we already know that, but I think we could make a good start just with this baseline.
Yeah, I'm very used to the 4 steps in ranking like Sharon has presented, because it's a way that holistically you would quickly grade things. But then if you get 4 down to 2, at least as David said, for the initial culling, I think it's more expeditious, because time is the thing, which is why I said, even though I was, last meeting, I said, Miro was great, looked good. I personally wouldn't have a huge bit of difficulty getting, conversant with it, but the time for orientation to that isn't time we need to spend. We can just use a Post-it and a,
Like go old school
yeah,
and just rip through it.
yeah. Because, again, if we were a team in a corporation that was gonna stay together forever, Miro could be really useful, but I'm not gonna use it again for anything else. I don't think that the time that it would take, and I'd probably pick it up quick enough, but not everybody would. So, anything that streamlines and simplifies it, I think, is what we want to at least begin with. And the 2-step method that Mary presented, I think, is probably it.
Ed, what do you think?
Um,
Do you have a preference?
no. I really
Doesn't
don't.
matter.
Yeah.
This is the new one?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Thoughts? Doesn't matter.
They have
Oh, yeah, who do you have online right now?
Margot and
Margot?
Brian.
Sorry. I'm
I
sorry.
was gonna say, I knew it was the microphone.
Margot, any thoughts on either option? Which one you feel like we get the most headway with initially?
Having never used either one of them, I don't really have any wisdom to offer.
Okay. Cool.
What about Brian?
Brian, I know where you stand.
Yeah,
Guessing.
I'm a little biased.
Yeah, I like your idea, Brian.
No,
I'll go with
I
the
just
other
think
one.
the precision of the 2x2 is going to be helpful in describing where these activities land.
Okay, can we, do we need to put it to a vote, or can we just decide?
I think we can just do it.
Okay,
Yeah.
so do you want to do the
Okay, it's not-
2x2?
We're not deliberating and
Great,
taking action, we're just.
awesome. We'll do the 2x2.
At least to start.
Yeah.
We may change.
Okay.
I mean, we could get a little practice this afternoon.
Yeah, that's what I think we should do.
Yeah, let's do it.
What I did, and I don't know, well, you all have the spreadsheets as well, right?
Yes.
So, well, all I did, and
Yes.
then thank you, Barbara, for reminding me on the lead, the project lead should be in there.
The implementation.
In column B.
Yep.
I'm sorry, got wiped out. So that definitely should be in there. So all I did was I renamed columns E and F to impact and feasibility. So, you know, you can go through this exercise of 1 through 4 in impact and 1 through 4 in feasibility.
Yep.
I'll record it and do some scoring later, just to kind of get us started with it.
So we can essentially, do we want to start with water resources?
I don't care where we start.
Yeah.
So there is, so
Distribute
there are
individual
two
ones.
sets of,
This is easier?
So this is the physical copy of what's, look at this.
Color coding, yay.
Mary, five.
All right,
Share, but,
this looks good.
oh, I
This helps.
got it. Extra community systems.
so these are Sharon's, so if you can just see the slight
No, I don't
difference,
think so. I think we, do
then,
you have a physical copy too?
Pass it back to Mary.
I do
She
too.
gave me two community systems.
And you'll keep track as we, great, okay.
Yeah, let's give it a run through.
Yeah.
Starting with the very first, let's start at the beginning. That example that I pointed out was the first action is to develop a resource management plan for the 6 ponds.
Mm-hmm.
And this is to achieve the goal of, as shown here, for water resources.
Right. That's why it's helpful, yeah, look back at the goal. And, you know, if you want to speak up on who would lead that, that's fine too at this time.
Who had the most exposure to like the committees managing wastewater and water resources?
Resource management plans, probably conservation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do we still have our online people?
Margot probably did a bunch of this.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's keep them up. But that would be better.
Can I say something?
Sure.
This is a recommendation that came out of not just the LCP, but the Open Space and Recreation Plan. And there's an existing effort underway through the Harwich Conservation Trust to initiate this process. But it's something that is a big project. It's going to take time. So is it feasible? Yes. Does it require funding? Yes. And it's not a trivial amount of funding. So.
Sounds like a 3.
So
Are we dealing with impact first on the first action
Yeah.
point?
let's move left,
Yeah.
right.
So from an impact perspective, Margot, based on the goal that we have in front of us, 1 being the lowest, 4 being the highest impact, where would you think you would put this?
I'd give it, the 4 is the highest, you said?
Yep.
Yeah, I'd give it a 4. It's very important.
Okay.
Feasibility.
And feasibility, 1 through 4?
Because of the funding question, I would say it's more like a 2,
Okay.
because it's hard, it will be hard to come up with the money for this.
Yeah, so for 2, it's low feasibility, so we need additional funding. Is there any policy changes or external partnerships we need to engage in for this type of stuff? Probably the
Yes.
partnerships, yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
great. Really well defined.
How easy that was?
That was honestly
Practically painless.
shocking. Okay, cool. And then time frame. I've got, yeah, hold on. Where's the time frame one?
It's, yes, that's that third slide where they intersect.
Got it. Oh, so where the feasibility and impact intersect?
Right.
And that
right.
leads to, okay, so if we are a 4 on impact, that's transformational, but a 2 on feasibility, that's gonna give us essentially the needs
Needs.
major planning and resources.
So that is, if you look at the quadrants here,
Mm-hmm.
higher impact, blah, 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 blah.
High impact, lower fees,
It's under the low, it's
So
the
it'd be under
third
2
quadrant
low?
on the bottom.
okay, so is it the bottom,
Yeah, I believe, needs a major, no, it's not due last.
Yeah, so you're looking at the 2x2 quadrants?
Yes,
Yeah.
where does the
Yeah, I-
intersection go, Brian?
Higher impact and lower feasibility,
it-
do later.
Okay, it goes into whatever quadrant you're looking at impact
due
versus
later.
feasibility.
Do
It's
later.
I wouldn't,
Yes.
for-
so that'd
I
be the
wouldn't for
timeframe would be
time.
due later. Yep,
Yep.
Too late.
I think we come back and we give the time attribute after we go through placing them in the quadrants, because some of these are going to start now, even
Correct.
though they're maybe not all the way in the upper right-hand corner.
yep.
So timing is more of how you place the activity for start.
So you're saying that's gonna be a do later?
No,
Yeah, I could do right after this
fall.
pass, or you could,
That's where it falls right now,
That's where
because
it
it was
falls. but
high impact.
I know, I
and-
understand that, but that really we don't really want that to be a do later.
well, if you look at the two axes, the axes place it in the quadrant.
But that's defined so you don't have an arbitrary definition.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's the thing, this puts it where the two intersect.
That's exactly right.
So what we can do at the end, Barbara, is actually start to slide the priorities over. So like, we're just categorizing them, and then once we have them categorized in later, now, next, or last, then we say,
Right.
hey, actually, because this is such a high impact, and because
Okay.
the constituencies and the stakeholders find this is a priority,
So
we
this is-
shift.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? But we have to start somewhere.
Got it.
Put our
That's
foot on the
exactly,
board and then we'll
let
jump
me just
some.
add, Derek, that's exactly right. What you're doing is separating the prioritization process from the scheduling.
Yep. Makes sense.
Right, so, yes, I was gonna suggest the same thing, like go down and do impact
Impact and
and feasibility,
feasibility
score
for all.
everything. And then
Yes.
what a follow-up exercise would be to place these on the
Okay.
page.
Okay.
Specifically.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank
we're
you.
just doing two columns.
Starting with the upper right-hand quadrant.
I think
Yes.
that's perfect, because then once we get the holistic picture, we
Yes.
can say, where are we?
Okay,
This shows you what.
next one.
Okay.
I know.
We don't have
Next one, Margot, is the work with Cape Cod Commission to complete pond profiles and expand monitoring for all ponds in Harwich. Impact versus feasibility.
Impact is again, I'd give it a 4. And feasibility, again, it's a question of staff time and funding. And, if the town wanted to put some resources into this, which I think they should do, and the commission can put resources into it, it will get done faster than it otherwise would. All of the monitoring that's been done in town on freshwater ponds has basically been a volunteer effort. And the Natural Resources Department has supervised it. And there's a ton of data there, but it hasn't ever really been analyzed. So,
That sounds like a 3 to me.
Yeah, that sounds like a 3.
Yep.
So 4 impact
Is
and
this
3
something that the
feasibility?
Yeah.
commission has an ongoing effort in?
yes,
And
Yes.
Also in terms of doing the testing and monitoring, does APCC do any ponds in Harwich also?
yes,
Which is ongoing
Yes.
also, so.
yeah. So
Yes.
there is partnership
And then
opportunity
move
there.
it up to that 3, Margot, because there's existing resources already dedicated to it.
Yeah, the words that make it most challenging are all ponds in Harwich. It's only a limited number of ponds now.
Yeah.
That's a good point, though. When we have an activity that's so big, it's possible that we break it up into pieces and we create a schedule for it.
Yep.
So I put it at a 3 now and then maybe deal with breaking it up.
Margot, good question. Do you have a lead identified for that? Like, who would be the group, the department that we work with to try and move this forward?
Natural Resources is, and to a lesser extent, the Conservation Commission, but
Conservation
it's been headed up by the Natural Resources Director.
Okay.
I want to say Heinz Prof.
Well, it's not Heinz anymore.
But it's not, I know, that's why I want to say it's Heinz.
That would
but
be
it's-
correct, Sharon.
It's New Heinz.
Cool. Are we good there, guys?
Yeah,
What was the number?
4 and 3.
4 and 3.
The next one, pursue implementation of pond watershed strategies for all freshwater ponds to improve their overall health and water quality, as well as potential erosion, sedimentation due to increased runoff from increased storm events.
Sounds like another 4.
Impact and feasibility, Margot.
Putting you on the spot.
Sorry.
This kind of follows on from the first one. In other words, we saw the Six Ponds Resource Management Plan as being the basis, a model basically for other ponds in town. So this is a longer term thing than the, you know, the specific for the DCPC.
Okay. So we would probably look at from an impact perspective, maybe a 3 or a 2? I don't know how to answer that, because this is where you actually start getting some improvement in the water quality, but you need a plan before you can implement those strategies.
If
So-
I may add, Margot, for the impact is for number 4, it's basically game-changing, and for 3, it's significant improvements to economic growth, sustainability, public health, safety, or livability, and serves a large portion of the population. So is it
Moderate would be-
game-changing, or is it more of significant improvements? And I see if it does marry with the first one, it would be game-changing.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, that's what we're going to have to do. You have to do an analysis to see, you know, what are the sources of pollution in these ponds, and how do you know, what strategies are needed to address that. And it's not the same for every pond.
Given the results of what you do in studying the ponds, for some ponds that are in very good shape, it's not terribly game-changing because they're in good shape, but for the ones that are in bad shape, having identified them and then doing something to correct it, it becomes game-changing.
Yeah, I think just,
Oh, 3
there
plus
aren't
5.
very many ponds that are in good shape, I'm sorry to say.
Is it a-
But
Yeah.
Well,
I would
realistically, this is probably more game-changing than the second one, working with the Cape Cod Commission. I mean, because the second one, we just put a 4 and a 3 on, that's more of a continuing of what we've been doing. We have other partners in moving that. But when we talk about this third one here, whereas we're talking about looking at all the pollutants there, and what do we need to do to change it, because we're having problems everywhere. So to me, this third one, as it is integrated with the top one, that's more of a game changer than the second one that we gave a 4-2.
But you would think it's a lower feasibility based on the lift, right?
it's
No,
further down the road, is the way I would put it. You've got to do a lot of work before you get to the point of actually implementing those strategies. I mean, there are things that can be done right away in some instances, requiring upgrading of septic systems within a certain distance of a pond and that kind of thing, or landscaping that doesn't allow runoff into the ponds. And so, I mean, there are some simple things that can be done sort of universally, but to really figure out a watershed plan for each of these ponds, that's going to take a long time.
Yeah.
And that's more in line with the definition of the feasibility.
Yeah.
We're looking at the impact right now. Is it, it's a 3 or a 4, is it game-changing? Or is it actually just, it's going to generally improve the general populace and the community? So that's 3 or 4. That's just on impact. Feasibility,
Feasibility is more about
it could be, it's
different
more
things that
on the
could be done,
barriers,
some
the
things
barriers to
can't,
having
and
that accomplished.
Right.
But developing a strategy for a pond is really in many ways dependent on completing the second item, coming up with the profile of what the problems with the pond are.
Yeah, and part of the work that the commission is doing is to try to, set a set of strategies that can be applied in more than one place. So, that could make completing step 2 could make the next one easier.
Yeah.
Okay. So consensus is item 3 is a 3?
On impact,
Yeah.
that's my vote.
Margot, what do you think? 3?
Yeah, I'm because I haven't seen Mary and Brian's document. I'm not really clear about the ranking here, but so I just tell you qualitatively it's important.
Which is wonderful, because it guides us to which definition it falls
Yeah.
into.
So it's helpful regardless, Margot. Appreciate
Yes,
it.
it is. It's
Whether you feel so
tremendously
or not.
helpful.
Is this document, does somebody have this document that they could just email to them right now so they could be looking at it? I mean, I'm visual and it would be killing me. I wouldn't be able to
Yeah. Mary, do you mind?
hold all those words in my head.
Sure she's got it.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, cool. So impact was that, and then now it's about feasibility, and I'll at least, Margot, read to you from a feasibility standpoint while we're getting this over to you.
Okay.
Low feasibility is this: challenges exist, solutions possible with 1, additional funding, 2, policy changes, and 3, external partnerships involved. So that's 2. Moderate feasibility is some barriers, funding and staffing, project achievable with current municipal capabilities and some external support. And then 4, highly feasible, easy to implement, it's already well-funded, broad stakeholder support, and aligns with existing policies and resources. And then obviously, low feasibility is, it's gonna be a lot of money and take a lot of time.
2.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I would think.
Yeah,
2, I would think it's a 2.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So it's gonna be a 3 and a 2 for that one.
yep.
Okay, cool.
Margot, a good way to think about these factors is impact is high value, and then feasibility, the higher the score, the easier it is to do. So
Okay.
low feasibility means it's just hard to fund, hard to find people. An example of a 4 might be, it's already in the responsibility of a town department, and therefore, we don't have to extend any permissions or,
Okay.
so think of it, it's really high to low.
Okay.
And the high score of both means it's something that we ought to be doing tomorrow, because it's a quick hit.
Okay.
High value and
Okay.
cheap.
Okay.
Moving on to the next one. Continue to implement the town's comprehensive wastewater management plan, including continued participation in Pleasant Bay Alliance. Review potential amendments to the CWMP to encourage additional housing opportunities.
I'd like to.
Go ahead.
Throughout many of the actions, I'm concerned with the ones that say continue to. If you just simply say continue to, why are we,
Looking at it.
why do we even say it? So that's particularly important in some of the later ones in this section. Continue to implement the town's MS4 permanent annual plans for stormwater management. I'm not sure why that's in a comprehensive plan.
David, the only counter to that is, as you look at a stack of continues, you might not have the affordability to do all the continues. And there might be some new initiative that turns out to be more important than the lowest continue.
Well, for example, on the one that we're now on, I have that concern about the entire first sentence, but the second sentence, to me, is one of the highest impact things, or the most important things.
The potential amendments to the
Yeah.
CWMP to encourage additional housing
Yeah,
opportunities?
so I have a global statement of, are there ways we can either get rid of or change the continue tos? But on this particular item, I'd give a very high ranking to the potential amendments.
I mean, do we have the ability to break that into 2 activities if they're going to score differently?
I don't think we need to continue to.
Well, if I could, this action comes up again, I think another time, if not 2 more times. So it comes up under different issue areas.
Comes under ocean resources, the continue to implement
I think
piece.
it's under housing.
The second sentence,
Yeah.
So it might better fit somewhere else.
It might, so maybe you wanna do a parking lot on that for the time being, or I'll make a note of it.
I think that's a good call out,
Yeah,
because that
or I
second
would-
action is
to
more
make it-
significant.
To make it clear, why don't we cross out that sentence here if we know that sentence is elsewhere? We shouldn't
this
be,
is
we
calling
shouldn't be
out-
scoring it.
The only thing this is calling out in, that I'm noticing a difference in is, this is calling out participation in the Pleasant Bay Alliance specifically for water resources. And then under ocean resources, it calls out the Round Cove and Pleasant Bay watersheds. It's the same start of the sentence, and it's like, we're gonna
Yeah.
follow this thing.
And I think it appears in housing also for, like clustering or, creating density development in village centers.
So can we parking lot that one?
Yeah.
And figure out how we're
Great
gonna,
idea.
how we're gonna deal with
Put them
that?
all
I would-
all together and figure out how we want to put it.
I would break it into two activities.
Yeah.
Well,
No, I think
all
we
of
want
the
to condense, not break.
Right.
We
condense
don't
it.
want to multiply this, we
Yeah.
want to condense it.
But if you have two sentences that would be scored differently, it tells us that they're two different things.
But I think the question
not.
we're addressing is not that. I think the question we're now addressing is what to do with the whole group of continue tos.
Yeah, so continue to monitor, continue to acquire open space, continue to implement town's MS4 permit, right? Like, it's a good point.
Why don't you just drop the words continue to? I mean,
You know
I
what?
mean,
That might actually solve the problem, because then all you're looking at is feasibility, and the feasibility is high because we're already doing it, and we already had the resources to do it. Thoughts?
Yeah, but I think it's worth making a note where it is a continue, so that it
Is
is
this
something that's
semantics and we're
worth.
crazy?
Yeah, yeah.
Is that what,
Yeah.
we're getting crazy,
lose that.
Christine looks.
No, I think part of, these are ongoing efforts, and I don't think it's a terrible thing to recognize what's being ongoing. What will continue to be ongoing for the town. I know it's a little bit confusing, but I think getting into the wordsmithing, we don't need to
too
resolve
much
this
about it.
here,
Right.
but we can just, move forward, make a note of it, and then
If-
I think, go ahead, David.
If recognizing the ongoing efforts you feel is an important part of the comprehensive plan, then I withdraw my opposition.
It also could mean that if you didn't have it in there, if you deleted it, that
Yeah, you-
when we talk about funding, and then that could
Right.
impact the
It still
funding.
needs to be in there for
So
that.
it is
I lose.
something,
Right.
That's fine.
many comp plans have, ongoing actions and things,
Right.
ongoing activities.
But calling that out, I do think that we probably want to still tag this particular CWMP recognition, because if it's showing up 3 or 4 other times, how are we
Then just put-
categorizing it?
Look at them all and see how it needs to be reworded.
Correct.
Take a- yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so,
But I would argue that it definitely belongs in the water section, because there's no single thing that we could do that would be more powerful than sewering. So,
And for further analysis, we'll be able to see when we have it in, either if we choose to do it in the software or on the whiteboard, where many of them will overlap just by the color coding. So you'll have that opportunity to see that same action and how it was ranked, depending on the category it's in.
noted.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I would still recommend we go through the exercise to
Yes.
do the impact and feasibility. And if we do decide to take the continue label off it, that we ought to add a 5th category to that time frame, which is continue. Because they need to be treated slightly different if they're already in progress.
It goes from a 4x4 box to there's a 5th box.
Yeah.
There's a bullseye right in the middle.
There's the middle box. It's the culmination of the storm.
Hey, we can do a lot of magic with PowerPoint.
All right, I love it. Okay, cool. So let us just tap.
Fearless leader has joined us.
Yes, and Joyce, coming fresh out of surgery, welcome.
I'm sure she's not fresh when she's just coming out of surgery.
What a metaphor for this work.
Yes. Thank you for joining us. We've decided. we-
soldiering on.
Yes, we're soldiering on. We're doing a 2x2 process, and we're practicing it right now. So I'm just bringing you up to speed.
Cool.
I'm doing my best, but I think I'm drowning.
No,
And
Doing great.
That's
We're-
right, you don't have
You're doing
35
fine.
minutes to go, you're in good shape.
and we're gonna tag the continue conversation for later. Make a note of that, and we'll figure it out.
So we're not going to impact or feasibility it.
I think we are gonna do impact and feasibility for the sake of Brian's sanity. So,
I think we should,
Yes,
yes.
Okay.
It's not just my sanity, it's for the good of the exercise.
and mine as well.
That,
So,
wanna change this.
For the Town Comprehensive Wastewater Management Plan included continued participation in Pleasant Bay Alliance, which we know is important, review potential amendments to the CWMP to encourage additional housing opportunities. What are we thinking for impact, Margot?
That's fine.
If
If you're still
I may
there.
ask Brian to send the PowerPoint to Margot that has the definitions. I can't connect. It's not connecting me.
All right, I'll send that to you, Margot,
Margot.
as well. And
Thank you.
Joyce, I think you already have it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's the
she's good.
problem. None of us had it until
Okay, do
Me
you,
and-
just a little
Three.
while ago.
should I send it to the whole team?
No, we've
Go
got
with
paper
4.
copies
Oh, you
tonight.
just said 4?
I hadn't said it
All
yet,
right.
I was starting to, but you got in there first. I think that additional housing opportunities should be on sewer. I think that there has to be some modification to the CWMP to make that work.
Okay,
So to me, it's a 4.
okay.
Yep.
Transformational?
Yep.
But we're already doing it.
That's more
Well,
feasibility
it's still
though, isn't it?
it's still defining the
No.
impact.
Or each year you go back for additional funding, not or every couple of years.
Oh, yeah.
I think every year we have to go back for it.
Mhm.
Right. So it's ongoing, but, think about the second part of this, which is, the funding part of it, how feasible is it, how likely, et cetera.
Mhm.
Yeah, feasibility is not a 4.
Not at all.
No,
2.
My first
It's-
thought
I
was a
think
2,
a 2,
actually.
yeah.
4 and 2.
4-2 done.
And I put DPW next to,
absolutely.
I've kind of forgotten about sort of who would need it, but if it's.
Water and wastewater and DPW.
Well, it's not
No,
DPW.
no.
It's water and
Water
wastewater.
department.
Water
and
department.
wastewater
Water,
department.
wastewater.
Yep.
Cool. Continue to require new private wastewater treatment systems to be designed for future connection to a larger public system.
4.
No, it can't be a 4 for just continuing what's already happening.
It's part of the, but if we're going with the sewering of the system being transformational, wouldn't that still be part of sewering of the system as transformational?
Does anybody know how many they've actually required?
I'm not positive in terms of the numbers, but, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Because right now, I mean, I'm assuming that the only one, since East Harwich is the only one that has wastewater,
Mm-hmm.
then any new private wastewater treatment systems of which we're talking about like a group or industrial or commercial like that. I mean, we're not talking about individual houses. So, I mean, have we had any of that?
Well,
Even had any of that in East
Monomoy
Harwich?
High School,
So
So-
Monomoy High School it's on the wastewater system.
no, well, its existing system was designed
To
with the
connect.
anticipation of, in the future, connecting.
To me, the difference, the previous one requires action to change what's currently going on. This one, it's public, the public position now is that all new private wastewater systems have to be designed for future connection. That's the current
That's the
opinion
current
of-
posture.
Current policy, yeah. So I think that continue it is fine, because that's the way we're all saying. But since it's existing policy, I believe it's a 3, not a 4.
It's not, yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Any objections to that?
No.
Okay, that'll-
Can you repeat it, 4?
3.
It's 3.
Okay, thank you.
And then feasibility,
Would be 4.
4.
4. We're already rolling.
Is that health department?
Margot, did you get the document?
That would probably be health department, right?
Page 2, page 2.
Ed, would that be health department on, yeah,
I think so.
So you're saying feasibility is a 4?
Yes.
like
Because
it's,
already-
Doesn't cost the public anything.
It's well-funded?
you know, there's a lot of support,
Private people
Privately
that have to pay
funded,
for
right?
it.
Yeah.
and it aligns with policies and the
Yeah,
resources we
If they're
have.
gonna do a big project, it's just an
Right.
incremental cost to do this.
Okay. Continue to monitor for emerging contaminants of concern, including PFAS, plastics, and other physical and chemical contaminants in the town's public water supply wells. Develop a management plan to address future challenges related to PFAS and other contaminants.
The second sentence bucks up the importance.
Yeah.
Develop a plan, so we don't have one? Is that what I'm reading?
That's what we're reading, but is that a fact?
Is that a
Does
fact?
the water and
Margo-
wastewater department have
Margo,
a?
from a, wastewater department standpoint, do we not have a management plan to address the PFAS and other contaminants in our water?
I don't know the answer to that. That's a question for the wastewater department. I know that the water department has, been,
Yeah, they read this, they saw this. So-
yeah. So, PFAS are something that we're just learning more and more about them. They've become a pretty serious issue in some of the wells in and around Hyannis, mostly related to the fire retardant materials that were used at the Fire Training Academy there next to the airport. But they come from all kinds of different substances, from plastics that we use, Teflon pans, that kind of stuff. And so they're in the groundwater. There hadn't been a requirement to monitor them until pretty recently. So this is a pretty new thing, and it could end up being very costly. The more the town looks into it, they may find that we have a problem, and I don't know what the status of that is.
Okay.
Well, currently in the water system, they're not finding any significant levels of those sorts of things yet. They showed up in Hyannis because the wells that got impacted were right next to the airport and
Yeah.
the fire training center, and
I thought one of
those-
the Chatham wells had PFAS a couple years ago.
Yeah, they did.
But it's not really a wastewater concern, but to deal with the impacts of them
It says water
is a water department issue of developing building the new filtering systems to filter it out,
It's needed, yeah.
So it'll be probably, if this turns out to be as bad as, or gets worse, it'll be feasibility-wise a very costly resource.
But it'll be water, because they're gonna have to figure out how to remove it before
Yeah.
they put it into the system
Yeah.
Yeah.
to reach our houses.
So from an impact perspective.
But it isn't going to be like it's something that you could develop a system to take it out of the wastewater.
No, but
I'm
it
not
says
worried about
it's
wastewater, I'm
water.
talking about water,
Filter
it's
it.
water
It doesn't say
supply.
wastewater. So nationwide, this is a growing concern. That gives it a
Right.
high impact.
Right.
Locally, it has not proven to be a concern. So I bounce around a little between 3 and 4. Personally, I end up on 3,
I do too.
Yeah.
but I could be persuaded otherwise.
Only because of what you said, but I also think the last sentence is sort of, I don't know, almost insulting, yeah. I have faith in our water department that they would continue to address things.
Future
and develop
challenges
their
that
own
come
plan
up,
that we,
yeah.
but at any rate, yeah, a 3.
Yeah, I would say a 3.
Feasibility?
And this is feasibility essentially to monitor, which is what we're already doing for contaminants, right? So we're already doing this stuff, and then to develop a plan, which I'm sure they have some version of a plan in there. It's not about executing on the plan, it's about developing the plan to mitigate it.
And when they dropped the well in North Harwich on the north side of Route 6, and found it had a high degree of manganese, they built a new filter plan to take care of it.
Gotcha.
And that's, if you get wells showing PFAS in it, then you'll have to build a plant to connect those wells up to that facility.
So would you say this is probably a moderate feasibility at 3? Some barriers,
That's
maybe
what I was thinking, just
current municipal
funding,
capabilities and some support?
and we don't know what the technology
Yeah.
will come to be and what it will cost, but it's not like you can ignore it, so
Okay,
3.
are we good with a 3
3
on
seems-
feasibility?
Yeah.
Great. Moving on to the next one. Continue to acquire open space in existing and future public water supply areas.
We're a sole source aquifer, so
Well, that kind of goes back to,
that's kind of
to
important.
the one with the PFAS and everything, is that
Yep.
we are a sole source aquifer, and if we've got a bunch of PFAS, et cetera, showing up in our wells, then we have a really big problem.
Yeah.
So prevention is cheaper. And-
We do have a lot of open space in those areas. Now, Margot, let me ask you, there's, on Depot, is it Streeter Avenue, and there's the housing piece that was turned down a few years ago because of water issues, and apparently is now on the list of the town's interested parcels for housing again. So is that considered to be in the water supply area? Do you know which parcels I'm talking about?
This-
Talking
this
about
is-
I think
between
I
middle,
I think I
middle road.
do know, and it's, there are multiple issues with that property. It is in a zone of contribution, I think, to both Chatham and Harwich wells. But it's also, there are a couple of vernal pools on the property, so it's got wetland issues.
I'm asking just in relation to the open space in existing and future public water supply areas. How would this language affect that?
I think what this is basically saying is that as we are working to acquire additional open space, that doing it in areas that contribute to public water supplies is a high priority.
Yeah.
And isn't some of that property off of Middle Road currently under consideration for acquisition?
This is, the piece I'm thinking of is
Yeah.
already owned by the town.
Yeah, that's the one I was talking about.
Well, I know that, though, in there's 4 lots, 2 of which are privately owned and border on some of the pools there.
Yeah, I don't know what level of detail we want to get into on this, but just in terms of continuing to acquire open space in existing and future public water supply areas, I give it a 4.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I agree.
Because open space means a lot of different things, and here we're talking about water supply, so we're not talking about
It's a win-win.
passive things like a baseball field. Some of the open, prioritizing this kind of open space is important, because of the relationship to the water supply.
Cool.
Yeah,
So this would be a 3?
A 4,
I'd give it a 4.
Okay, 4.
for impact.
Transformational impact. Okay, so it's a 4. Feasibility?
I'll have the minority view, I'd give it a 3,
Well,
but I'll be the minority.
Ed, 3?
How feasible is it?
It's quite feasible. In fact, the the Real Estate and Open Space Committee has a set of criteria that we use to evaluate properties, and this is one of the things highest up on the list. So,
So we'll give it a 4 for feasibility?
yeah, I mean, there's a funding source, which is the Community Preservation Act,
Great.
and so it's a question of what lands are still available, and could be still protected.
All right, sounds like a win-win.
That's the first 4 we
There
got.
we go. Water resources, that's what we're doing. Buying some land, everybody. Great. Okay, so we're moving on to the next one. Continue to implement the town's MS4 permit and annual plans for stormwater management.
Okay, I don't know about this, so maybe Christine can help us with this.
So the MS4 is, and I'm a little rough in terms of my background on this, but it is part of the permitting process for stormwater management. So the select board can issue a stormwater permit for any development that's going to disturb an acre or more of land. And so I do think supporting the MS4 permit and any other requirements in terms of surfaces, I think is a positive for the town. And I think reducing any efforts to reduce impervious surfaces, I think is a positive impact, and it's an issue that we come up with a lot in terms of site coverage and building coverages, mostly site coverage, I'll say. And so I think if there are ways that we can better address that, I think that would be positive, and that can be part of this.
And other things that are part of the MS4 program is, you notice, along the town's roads, there's a lot of replacement of existing
Catch
drainage
basins.
basins and structures, and adding in additional ones to keep the water draining in rather than just sort of spreading out
Funding.
all over. For the state, I guess that they're more in Brewster, but on Route 6, between here or between the 11 and 12, on the northbound side of the road, they put in these big long swales, which are what they call vegetative drainage basins.
Yeah.
They put a couple of those in. That's the state's response to the MS4 program for highways. Obviously much bigger drainage structures than we're doing along our little roads in town, but
Oh, we just put 5 big ones in on the sidewalk project that
Yeah,
goes into
yeah.
Witchmere.
yeah. But that has actually been an ongoing project with the highway department. They, part of their road maintenance funds, they allocate to do 5 or 6 or 7 drainage structures a year, depending on how difficult, you know.
So what,
Feasibility is pretty easy.
feasibility, easy, impact,
Impact 2 or 3. It's not-
moderate, I would say moderate. 2,
Say,
2 or 3.
compared to everything else, I'm just
Yeah.
thinking,
Everything's not, we can't have straight A's here, folks.
2, I'm thinking 2,
Yeah,
feasibility 4, probably.
4.
yeah.
wait, no, wait. So you're saying a moderate impact for impact?
Yeah,
Addresses an
Has
issue but has limited
Minor
reach or
improvements to
long-term.
infrastructure, economy, or livability? Meaning,
like it's only really impacting the groups, I would think, the area around it, and it's, the infrastructure is limited in scope, right? It sounds like it's more just drains in the areas that it's impacting, so I could be wrong here.
So moderate impact according to these definitions and moving on to very high feasibility.
Because it's already well-funded with the highway programs and the
Okay.
funding that we have.
Yep.
You
And
mentioned that a bunch went in, right?
And on the evaluation metrics, if it's a 2 impact and a 4 feasibility, it's low-hanging fruit, which it really is, because it's
Yeah.
required in the planning of new developments, or, you know,
So it might be easy to
And-
prioritize.
and already queued up in the annual activities of the town.
Ed just exemplified that grid system works.
Yeah.
It's low-hanging fruit.
so
Cool.
it's a 2 and a 4?
4, 2, 4.
Okay, thank you.
Cool. Adopt a townwide fertilizer management bylaw.
4-1. Just for giggles.
I'm going to say 4-1 as well.
Yep,
There is opposition.
Oh, yeah. If you weren't sitting in this room the night all the landscapers showed up for what might have been their very first ever select board meeting in their life, it's a very complicated thing, and the state's got stuff, I mean, but to have a bylaw, to put it on the books would be
I
great.
feel like it gets shot down every town meeting.
It does, but
Because it's
Doesn't
not
mean-
a simple thing to do. The state oversees it, the landscapers who,
Maybe a
so the
3-1.
economic you know, it's tough. Because I was looking at that, it's like, I'm not quibbling that much about the impact, but look at the feasibility, there'd be a lot of pushback. It doesn't sound
How does
sensible,
4-1
but
come out?
Maybe 3,
there would
3-1.
be.
So a
Yeah, I'd
3-1
say a
then,
3-1.
probably.
I was just going to say that 3-1. I don't think it's a 4.
Yeah, there's a lot
Okay.
of constraints, political constraints, and, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the impact has nothing to do with the political.
No, but I
No,
don't
but the
think it's
feasibility
transformational.
does. Yeah, the feasibility part does, though.
Oh, I agree with the
Yep.
feasibility.
Yeah.
I'm just questioning 3 versus 4 on the,
You think
Yep.
it's transformational?
probably not. 3-1.
Okay, great.
3-1. I cave easily.
I love this team.
David Spitz is
You guys are my favorite. I wish my coworkers were like
Did you
this.
read that on Facebook? No.
It'll be there in an hour, though.
Just to point, 25 years of
okay.
having a lawn on Cape Cod without a drop of fertilizer.
How green's that? lawn?
Agreed, but a lot of
It's
people.
green.
Okay.
A lot of people don't, and, I don't really love those lawns that look like they took spray paint and spray painted it green, but I know we have a lot of people in this town whose livelihood depends on.
Yeah.
And the case they made was they're the ones who understand it and use it appropriately and carefully.
I completely agree that this should be an action, but it's going to be tough to do.
Yeah.
Okay.
We should have a bylaw that everybody uses landscapers.
Help the economy, I like
Another
that.
bylaw that they don't all park in the street and block us. But every time that happens, I say, they're doing their job, they need the money.
We're moving on.
Cool, awesome, we got those numbers. Adopt landscaping best practices for buffers to lakes and ponds based on Cape Cod Commission pond buffer guidelines. Pound buffer guidelines.
Pound buffer.
Pond buffers.
So this is something that already exists. And could be adapted into the planning board's site plan review process, or actually into zoning regulations if you wanted to. I think it would be a really great thing to do because it would limit the amount of, if it was properly applied, it could limit the amount of nutrients that are going into ponds from the surface.
Margo, you say this exists. Should this be better said to enforce?
No, because it's not a regulatory thing now. It's just, they have basically these guidelines which could be adapted to be,
Regulatory.
yeah.
And, to that extent, it's not only the zoning, it could also be to the extent that somebody building close to a pond shore needs to go in front of a conservation commission. It could be
Right.
part of, be included in their regulation.
Yep.
But the way this is worded, though, it's adopt landscaping best practices. Who are we asking to adopt?
Well, probably the planning board and the conservation commission.
Okay, so maybe that-
In other words, as part of their regulatory review of new development or redevelopment of a site, they would be incorporating these guidelines that, talk about the kinds of things that you should plant, within that buffer zone and, handling stormwater so that it doesn't run off directly into the pond and that sort of thing.
Okay, I know at one of the earlier activities, we actually named who the party was that owned it. So maybe that's what we need to do for this. I think for anything that says adopt, we need to make sure we're clear about who needs to adopt it.
No, we're just making recommendations. We get into trouble if we start telling everybody who does their job.
Really? I mean, because I look at that and it's nebulous.
So is the intent of this action to adopt regulations or to just advertise or whatever landscaping best practices?
Yeah, publish best
I'm just wondering
practices.
which one
It
it
can be
is.
done either way. It could be done through education of homeowner associations in, pond neighborhoods. There are a variety of ways that it could be done.
It just affects feasibility of which way we're doing this.
And
Yeah.
to just really
Right.
answer Brian's question, that will be noted once we have an assignment with Sharon in that second layer of who would be the leader of that. So this would be it for the department or whatever entity that's going to be assigned to this type of action. So right now, it's just as far as the ranking, just adopting best practices and the impact and the feasibility. Is it being done now?
Two
But are
and
we
four.
talking about advisory or mandatory? That's
I
what
don't
we-
think we have to worry about
Yeah.
that. We are an advisory committee.
do.
and This has to be somewhat vague or broad enough that it could maybe apply to the DPW and any areas that they maintain publicly in town, as well as homeowners.
Okay. There's a difference between somebody who's got the responsibility to promote best practices. That can easily land in department. But when you say adopt, are we talking about the landscapers adopted, the homeowners adopted? Who's adopting? I just think-
Anybody, everybody, I think,
So do you want to
again,
change the word adopt to promote?
If that's what we mean by promoting best practices. I'm just saying, this is a good exercise that as we're looking at the wording, the way it is, if we're having a hard time to score and assess it, it might require tweaking the wording.
2 and
This might
4,
be
I'm
one
not
of
having
those-
any problem with that.
Sharon, as the expert here.
Just, no, not the expert, but please, just your guidance. These would be actions, think of this broadly as the town
Yes.
would carry out, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
These are not actions that private homeowners would take, and at this stage in a comprehensive plan, I would agree with you that keeping some things high level, that just assigns responsibility for who's gonna take the lead on it. So that's what I'm keeping track of in that other column, is who would take the lead, and then they would work towards implementation, and it could be guidelines, or it could be regulations, or it
Could be promotion.
education.
So you're
Okay.
okay with adopt is the word that we start this with?
I mean, yes, because this is something the town, you know.
It's gonna do.
Think of it broadly,
Yes.
the town.
If it's town adoption, then the feasibility has got to be one.
Oh, I still say 2, 4.
You think very low feasibility,
Yeah, really.
Brian?
Yeah, if you're asking the town to adopt best practices, that's a large,
Suggesting. This is
I
one
don't
of
agree-
many
I don't agree with that.
recommended actions.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying, Brian. All of these actions, the town is taking ownership in them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't give it
You know,
a 4, but
as the town, okay, I'm thinking of the town as the townspeople. I'm one of the townspeople. Are you asking me, the townspeople?
Town officials, the
to
town
adopt-
committees, the town administration, the town government.
Okay, that's different. Okay, that's different then. I would agree it's a higher feasibility.
Okay, cool. So,
Never mind.
personally, you know,
But it's not clear. I think we just have to make these things clear.
This isn't clear.
to make this, I think, clear, if you
Clear as
added
mud.
some wording to it, and instead of it just saying adopt landscaping best practices for buffers, you say adopt landscaping best practice regulations or guidelines for buffers to lakes and ponds.
Don't we
I think
already
it's
have
fine
that
the way
though
it
in
is.
Huh?
Yeah.
Well,
No?
yeah, I'm sorry, Bernadette, but I'm tripping over it. If I'm a layperson reading this, I wouldn't understand who you're asking to
It's not
adopt.
going to be reading it, though, that's the
But
thing.
Brian,
This
I
is-
do have to agree with Sharon, all of these action points are simply placed in
Town.
for the town's consumption as suggested actions, the broad base of
All
it,
right,
to look
all
at
right.
it that way.
now,
All right.
my question goes back to this, and we're going to pause right after this one, because Dave and I were kind of noodling some ideas, but from an impact perspective, let's give it a number.
Yep.
2.
Two.
Two. Do I hear anything other than a 2?
going once.
Awesome. From a feasibility standpoint, Brian, are you withdrawing the 1 that you went with?
He better.
Doesn't matter.
Yes, I withdraw the 1 because for the town to do this. I thank you, Mary, for adding that little qualifier in. You have to read these things, I have to read them in a different way.
3 questions?
I say 2 and 2.
Deuce and deuce over here. Maybe, I feel like 3.
I was leaning to 3. I'm okay with either 2 or 3.
Let's do 2 and 2. We haven't
2
had
and
one of
2.
those yet.
2 and
Okay.
Garrett,
Go
may I
ahead.
make a suggestion?
Sure.
Just, again, for the essence of time, it took us a while. It was very informative to go through this ranking, everything, but everyone had such wonderful information to add. A suggestion to allow this process to move forward is everyone take their worksheets, score them as you would believe. We come back, we compare notes, and we have a discussion on those that are different.
I was going to do something similar. I was going to actually suggest divvying it up a little bit.
Do what?
Divvying it up a little bit so that everyone doesn't have to do the remaining 77. Depends on how much people want to take on. Are people comfortable with going through the entire list?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so, and the only reason I say that is, I don't want to have a subjective weight of
Yes.
mine that's going to look at things differently than a Mary. I think we can at least collaborate on
Right,
that
so-
cross-functionally.
Now, the only thing, you go first. We have a couple of revisions to make. I came up with a couple in the waste management that I'd like to get into this list.
Cool.
And we gotta make sure that the housing and you and I still don't fully agree on community design. We
We
had,
can tweak it.
so I just want to say, we got a few revisions to get into this list that we should distribute within about a week or so.
Okay, so does it make sense to go through what we have now, and then when we get those revisions, we add those actions in?
I
Post?
think we should, everybody go through and rate everything, like we were just saying, have it done in advance of next meeting,
Okay,
but don't get started for a week to give time to get everybody an updated list. That's my suggestion.
Just send it to me and I can incorporate those updated actions in community design. And that'd be the only section that would need the updating, correct? Community design?
Couple of things in waste
Oh,
management.
that's right, you had mentioned, I'm sorry, okay.
Did you incorporate David's housing?
did you say
I have it
housing
all in
too?
there,
Okay,
yes.
so we've
Housing.
got green, blue,
And peach.
And
Peach.
peach, I like that.
so these are our 3 sheets that we're gonna work from.
I was going to say, since I've made changes to the columns, that I can send back to Christine
Yeah.
these revised sheets and distribute them,
Could,
that way.
could we, just so everybody has one, could we incorporate essentially the ranking system in one of the tabs as a key?
Oh, I'm gonna do all
So
this on
the,
paper, I'm not
the,
doing
I think under,
Doing it electronically.
I don't know if you, do you have a
it.
copy
I'm
of
doing
this
it on
one yet?
spreadsheets.
Of the 2x2?
These were formatted for distribution, for manual distribution. As far as what Sharon is trying to capture, you'd have to get rid of all the formatting and everything. So
Oh.
I'm thinking that you would prefer raw data.
Oh, I don't
without the
mean
formatting.
adjust the I think keep that formatting, but it's probably in Excel, I would assume, right? So I'm thinking create a new tab and just say key and take these and just paste them in as pictures, a new tab.
Yes,
Yes,
that can be, that's
Just so there's a
easily done.
reference point in one document. So if Margot has a question and she goes, well, what is the impact, low impact, okay, middle, so we're all like reading from the same song sheet.
This thing here.
Yeah, so just the scoring definitions. So tab for the scoring definitions, and in the same tab, I would just call it like a key tab, and then
For the matrix?
Yeah, the matrix itself. So the evaluation matrix. I think those two things.
Garrett, you sell yourself short as a facilitator. Excellent.
You were amazing. You were so good.
Says the doctor who just was doing some surgery. Thank you.
So we'll be marking
good.
these things.
Oh, it was great.
Bringing them back.
Yeah, so we're gonna,
not-
I believe,
Tabs.
David's suggestion, correct me if I'm wrong, was to give a week before we mark these up so that we have an updated list.
We have to send out, I think the updated list should be sent out to everybody. And once everybody receives that, hopefully in about a week, then they should go through and mark everything.
But so we're gonna get another set of these to mark
Yes.
up.
per the updates that Sharon's going to incorporate and also David's.
Can I ask a question, though, in case we wanted to get a head start?
We could start on what we've got.
Could we say which areas should we not waste our time on between now and then? So that we can get the majority of these things done, and
The
then,
only ones that I have are some very, very minor changes to waste management.
On the back of the blue sheet.
so in built systems,
Is that, no.
Yeah, it's the
Yes, for
back of
waste-
built
yeah,
systems.
Blue is built systems, waste
Waste management's
management.
the back sheet,
waste management is, yeah, the back sheet of the second page or third page.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And,
So hold on that.
And are these, David, excuse me for clarification, are these changes to action?
those are the ones I did in my email today.
Okay, I'm just trying to clarify.
So those are already available.
Yeah. So they're only related to the actions.
That's right.
Okay, and same for housing or community?
No, housing is okay.
Community design, I'm sorry.
Community design, we just didn't agree.
No, we did. I think we just needed to get clear on,
Okay,
I
pardon
agreed
my
with,
terminology.
I agreed with you. I think we just needed to add it, tweak a little language.
We're in full agreement, and we just need to tweak a couple of things.
Okay.
Okay, so what part of,
That's just community design.
so that whole
All
section?
of community design?
I think, well, is this got the new stuff?
Yeah, so in the blue, right here, community design.
Front page and
Here,
half of
and then
the
it goes
second.
somewhat into the back of the first page.
You know, this is pretty close. You could go ahead and do this.
Christine,
Yeah, we can.
Yeah.
we have to get out of here now.
Yes, I have another meeting to
So-
prep for, so I do need to clear
Go
the
ahead
room.
and just use these.
Yeah,
Let's do that, just the only one to stay away from for the time being.
waste management.
Waste management.
That's fine.
And if you look at your email today that I sent out unofficially, then you've got those.
Awesome.
Very good.
What's that?
So when is our next meeting?
It is, I can tell you that, it's the regularly scheduled plan. Hold on. Let me just get the calendar in front of me. It is scheduled for,
April 28th, Monday.
Is it the Monday, the 28th?
it is, so today's the 8th. Yeah, Monday, the 28th. We have to get a room, but yeah, we're scheduled Monday, the 28th to get in before town meeting.
We should all have, by then, by going into that meeting, we should have everything scored on our individual sheets, and we'll put that together one by one by one.
Perfect.
And I think also we need to look at the plan layout that Ryan Vaughn has
Which looks very
done.
promising to
Yes.
me.
Yeah,
Okay, so we'll do that on our next meeting. Great. Everybody look at the plan layout between now and then and get the scoring filled out before then. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Second motion.
Roll call.
Oh, that's right. Mary, aye.
Darren, aye.
David, I.
Bernadette, aye.
Barbara, aye.
Brian?
Brian?
Yeah, Brian wants to keep talking.
Oh, God.
Forget it.
Brian, aye.
The moderator says all in favor, those who wish to remain.
Margo?
As they say, Brian,
Aye. Aye.
Joyce?
you don't have to go home.
Aye.
You can't
Great.
stay here.
Awesome. Meeting adjourned.